It all starts with a surprised young man, RPROTAUILHAN, who is walking everywhere without observing any person, so he arrives at his university but there is no trace of students or teachers. His classroom is empty, the cafeteria and other areas the same, so he decides to leave. As he continues walking he finds it strange and thinks, how strange, I'm the only person in the school. Then we see the PROTA walking again. Because he was waiting for the bus, but it never arrived, he keeps thinking that everything is too quiet. Changing his mind, he just wants to get home and go to bed. When he gets home, he calls his mother, but nobody answers and he worries. He looks at his watch and realizes that something strange is happening, because when he left for school it was 2:45 and when he got home it was still the same time. He quickly looks at his phone and sees that it is also 2:45. He thinks that at least 2 hours have had to pass while he went to school and came back. He realizes that the sun is in the same place and says it's as if time had stopped, except for me. And someone behind the PROTA responds, that's right. Suddenly a beautiful and gigantic wings appear. She was an angel with long blonde hair, with beautiful slippers, a tight dress, beautiful gems and a perfect body. She was white as snow, who tells him that the time on earth has stopped, except for him. Then our PROTA, amazed and scared, asks her who she is. She laughs and just thinks that if he does not realize who she is. The PROTA remains thinking for a second and only responds that she is an intruder. She gets upset and tells him that if he still doesn't understand, what does he think a person with wings and white dress can be? The PROTA stays thinking for a few moments and answers that if she is a cosplayer. She answers, almost losing her patience, that she is not, clears her throat, and tells him that she is an emissary of God, that she is an angel and her name is Lita, that the reason for her presence is that she has come to visit him because he has been left alone, that he has been left behind. Saying those words, our PROTA makes a face of disbelief and makes a flashback, where we see him when he was a child and in his first excursion the bus leaves him. Then as a teenager, in a training retreat, the bus also leaves him. In a high school mathematics excursion, he also missed the bus, and finally for the university entrance he was also late. Returning to the present, we see our PROTA lying on the ground disconsolate, thinking that he has always been left behind, he has always been forgotten. Lita explains to him with the greatest joy that all humans have been sent to another dimension, except him. Our PROTA, with tears in his eyes, wants to know why that has happened. Then Lita explains that the Earth is going through a cataclysm. Like all, a teacher tells him that a cataclysm means that the Earth has leveled up for a next stage, since it has reached the maximum number of experience points, which means that the mana has been released. That's why an archaic recoding will take place, which finally is called state. From all that Lita said, the PROTA has not understood anything, and sarcastically tells him that if that is a simple explanation. Lita continues with her explanation, saying that when the mana is released on Earth, many monsters will appear, which can be destroyed with common weapons. What if they left the humans as they were? They would be annihilated with the arrival of the monsters. That is why God had stopped the time on Earth and sent all humans to another world, so that they could train and adapt to the mana, and that in fact the real bodies are kept in a safe place, and that their spirit were sent to the other plane, so that humanity learns to use the mana in a different world, and thus have possibilities to defend themselves from future monsters. The PROTA, after the explanation, asks if the monsters cannot be destroyed with more powerful weapons. But Lita answers that the monsters are formed by high-range energy and not even a nuclear missile can destroy them. For that reason it was necessary that humans were strengthened. To conclude, she makes him see that God is a merciful being who has helped humanity to learn to use the mana, but our PROTA interrupts her questioning about what happened to him. Lita simply responds that she believes that there was a mistake. The PROTA tells him to rectify the mistake. However, Lita explains that nothing can be done, but that God is a merciful being and in view that they have left him behind, has decided to give him a reward. Our PROTA, crying, only explains that what he wants is to be sent to the other plane like the others, to learn to use the mana. Lita tells him that this is impossible, that he must wait for the cataclysm, and that humanity will take 10 years to return to Earth. Our PROTA, still crying like a baby, asks him what he is going to do during that time alone. Lita answers him not to worry, that he is going to use that time to train his body to prepare for the cataclysm, and he, crying frustrated, tells her that if the cataclysm happens, what can he do if he does not know how to use the mana? With the greatest encouragement and motivation, Lita tells him that he only has to prepare himself physically to be stronger. And this is how our PROTA tells us how he began his solitary life on Earth. 5 years have passed since Lita's conversation with our PROTA, And you can see the different countries and cities, all abandoned. Then we see the PROTA who has gained muscle mass, exercising and training hard, because he could only work on his physical strength, while the rest of the people were practicing with the mana, in order to develop the necessary powers, to resist the attack of the future monsters. Now we see Lita, sitting next to our PROTA, asking him if he is not bored of doing the same thing every day. During these years, he answers her without stopping exercising, that he has no other choice, that she had told him that he should prepare for the worst. Lita notices that PROTA's muscles have developed with the passing of time. She also sees that his strength increased and that he is a person who has a lot of patience. Then she tells our PROTA that she really thinks that he is an extraordinary person who even managed to avoid the eyes of God with his stealth techniques. The PROTA annoyed claims to her that then he was abandoned because of her fault, but Lita just laughs. She was the only person our PROTA could talk to on Earth. She visited him once a week, but she was in charge of preparing him his delicious meals, which by the way he thought they tasted better than his mom's. And every time he finished eating, magically the dishes disappeared. When the PROTA had developed his physical condition, he decided to start learning martial arts or use some weapons. Lita asked him how he was going to learn if he was alone. Then he answered that he would learn using the internet. Of course, the question was how there was electricity and internet yet if there was no one. The answer is because time had stopped. With the passing of time, our PROTA was improving his techniques in the use of weapons, and after 4 years Lita told him that it was time to practice with her, that with an opponent perhaps he could improve much faster, to which our PROTA replied that how he was going to hit an angel, that no, that he did not hesitate to hit her for being 9 years alone. And with all the rage he had, he tried to hit the angel, but she with a light punch left his face bruised and bleeding. And so the promised 10 years passed. We see that Lita is congratulating him because he already had the necessary skills to defeat the monsters that were low level. She also proposed that if he leveled up, he could learn to use the mana, that she could even be his own teacher. That the positive thing is that now when the cataclysm came, many things would change, that everything would improve. They said goodbye, but before he asked her if they were going to meet again, she only replied that it would depend on what he did. Later we see the PROTA in a sports field, waiting for the appearance of people, thinking that he had a long time without seeing anyone. He was very nervous and anxious. From the skies Lita was watching him. While waiting, the PROTA only thought of seeing people again and that his life would be normal. However, time passes, seconds, minutes, hours, and no one appears. Then the PROTA asks Lita what happened, why no one arrives, and she with a laugh of shame tells him that maybe a mistake has occurred. Frustrated, we see the PROTA crying on the floor, disconsolate, thinking that the calculation of the time was wrong and he would have to wait 10 or 20 years. Then the PROTA, cheering up, accepts that he can wait 10 years more. However, the years go by, 10, 20, until 50 years have passed, but the people never arrived. So we see our PROTA who has kept himself without aging, practicing martial arts. Lita congratulates him because he has become much stronger and skilled than she thought. She sees that he is a little discouraged and asks him why he feels like that. He explains that he no longer remembers his mother's face. Lita explains that he can't stop practicing because at any moment there could be a cataclysm. She asks him what he is going to do and he says not to worry, that he is going to continue training, but he is going to read books. So she congratulates him and thinks it's a good idea. After he had read all the books in the library, he decides to start learning languages, and so begins the adventure of our PROTA, who begins to travel around the world. He travels through China, Russia, America, and so he was learning several languages. He was reading all the books he found around the world to the east and Africa. Finally, he managed to read all the books of the places he traveled around the world. Lita, looking at him with admiration, asks him if he is not tired. He answers, super motivated. He has no time to be tired. He still has things to do to prepare for the great cataclysm, and despite the time that has passed, he still has faith that people will return and that everything is a preparation for the great cataclysm. Moments later, we see Lita praying to God to please bring back the humans before our PROTA reaches his limit and loses faith. So many more years go by and we see our PROTA hunting a wild boar, because after having read all the books in the world, he began to learn about butchery and blacksmithing. He wondered what would happen if he killed all the animals in the world, but Lita only told him to hunt the animals that she allowed him to, so that the balance of the world would not be disturbed. 274 years have passed since our PROTA was left alone. Lita thinks it is a long time even for an angel. She is surprised to see how a human has lived so long, preparing for an uncertain future. 300 years have passed and he completed his butchering skill. Then he was focused on learning and mastering the techniques of blacksmithing. He took many strokes. He made many weapons that broke. It took him about 5 years to make his first sword, which turned out to be very beautiful but did not cut anything. That sword was taken by Lita as a souvenir. As time went by, he made all kinds of weapons, starting with daggers, spears, swords, axes, and hammers. It has been 50 years, but the PROTA, despite all the time that has passed, does not lose faith and continues to seek to learn new things. 100 years went by and finally, he managed to make a perfect spear. Lita was more and more amazed to see that in spite of the time, our PROTA was a constant person who did not give up easily. Having mastered butchery and blacksmithing, he decided to take up martial arts again, perfected his technique, and increased his strength even more. Lita thought that 1,000 years had already passed and that at some point our PROTA would reach his limit sooner or later to learn everything. Then she was worried and thought that he had to experience something. She thought about the awakening of feelings. However, she felt bad because she thought they were vulgar things. Since she was an angel and her mission was to help our PROTA, nothing to satisfy carnal desires. After so much thinking, she still decided to get so close to the PROTA, about to give him a kiss, but he interrupts her, telling them that her sword has been moving very rarely. Suddenly the sword flew away. Lita started chasing it since she considered that she could not lose it because it was a gift from the PROTA. At the same time, he starts to change the clothes she was wearing, appearing the clothes he had when the earth stopped. There she understood that everything was going back to the day when the earth stopped. While Lita was trying to grab the sword, she saw that the great cataclysm was beginning. Likewise, the body of the PROTA began to fly to another side, and Lita was sad because she had not been able to say goodbye. She had become fond of him during these 1,000 years. He was also sad that they had not been able to say goodbye, and he only remembered the first time they met, and he hoped to see her again. Hey, if you are liking the video, don't forget to subscribe. Leave your like and click on the notification bell to notify you when new videos are uploaded. Little by little, the humans began to appear in all the places from where they had disappeared, and we saw our PROTA, who had a status menu that indicated his name, title, strength, health, skills, and the level in which they were. Then he realized that it was a status window, which meant that the day of the great cataclysm had arrived. All the people who were appearing saw their statuses and were very happy to have returned after 10 years. Our PROTA realized that no person reacted to him, and he thought that it was possible that they did not see him until he read in his status menu, stealth ability, and there he got upset, thinking that he was predestined to be alone. As he was upset, he decided to go home. The only thing that made him happy was that he saw people in the street again after so long. When he finally arrived home, he heard a voice calling his name. That voice was his mother. At last he could see her after so long. She was very happy to tell him that she had missed him a lot. After a big hug, they began to eat. In the dining room was his father, who was reading the newspaper. Our PROTA thought that everything had returned to be like before. The conversations between both parents were about the places where they had been. Each one told his experience and how different it was to control the mana. While the PROTA was eating, his mother asked him where he had been. Making a flashback, he remembered his training time and how good he had been with Lita. Instead, he told her that he did not remember where he had been. They talked about how to earn money using mana, since they would pay a lot of money for the corpses of the monsters. But the PROTA interrupts them, saying that he cannot use the mana. The parents only tell him not to worry, to start studying. Our PROTA feels happy that peace has returned to the world. Then when he goes to his room, he sees the last steel sword he had made and thought that when the world restarted, his sword would disappear. Then he thought that Lita had done everything possible so that he could keep his spear. Holding it, he made a movement with it, and the spear menu opened where it indicated that the weapon had a unique grade, an attack power of 800 and a durability of 500, and had been granted because it was the strongest weapon made by a human without the help of mana. Minutes later, we see that the PROTA begins to search for information on the internet, finding things about what is needed to attack the monsters. How to level up. Benefits of leveling up is level 10. What happens when you reach level 50, how they can advance to the second class, what is the third class. However, no cases have been heard about people who have reached the fourth class. Already read all the information. He considers that the next day he will ask more at school. Then he thought out loud how much he missed Lita. Suddenly a voice was heard answering behind him. He will be glad to hear what you just said. Our PROTA quickly turned around asking who it was, to which he replied, I have been sent by the heavens to help you use the mana. I am an angel and my name is Eartha. Our PROTA was left wondering that once again an intruder had appeared in his life, a second angel. Eartha starts telling our PROTA that she was sent because another angel asked for him. It was not fair to abandon a human who could only train physically. Then our PROTA asks if it was Lita, and Eartha answers yes. He asks why she did not come to help him, to which Eartha answers that what happens is that those above were worried that an angel and a human would get too close. That is why they did not send her. He, a little sad, understands why. Eartha scans him and tells him that there is something different with his level of physical ability, that there was no need for an angel to take care of him. He could easily defeat a low-rank monster just with your fist. Immediately we see a flashback of Lita praying and crying, saying that he was a human who had no mana. that he had been alone for 1,000 years, that she was worried about him. Then Eartha tells him that Lita manipulated them, that he is not an innocent angel, but he has no lesson and already received the mission. She goes on to tell him that it is seen that he has received a lot of physical training, that she is there only to support him so he can learn to use the mana with ease. Our PROTA asks her that how he will be able to use the mana. She answers him that simply by having her next to him already that will activate the mana inside him, since she is a superior being and just by being there, the speed of knowledge, control and application of the mana will be 10 times faster, and according to her calculations then in 1 year he would be ready. The PROTA asks her if she is going to stay with him all the time. She answers that she has a spell to prevent other inferior beings from seeing her. He asks how she will do when she takes a shower or goes to the bathroom, to respect her private life, to at least leave him alone in those moments. The next day we see the PROTA walking with Eartha. With the spell she is very small and no one can see her. He asks her if she is going to be all day on top of his head, to please not move so much because it is very uncomfortable, but Eartha tells him to shut up, while a group of soldiers passes by him, since the government prepared them against the monsters that could appear in the future. However, our PROTA remembers that Lita told him that the monsters could not be defeated with high-impact weapons. Already in the classroom, nobody notices his presence. He complains about his stealth ability. Eartha tells him that it is not a bad ability, on the contrary it is a good ability, but our PROTA believes that it is only an ability for losers. Then to motivate him he explains that for example, if he combined all the beings that are in the classroom, his power skills would be less than the power of stealth, and stresses that despite everything although he sees it badly it is not a bad ability. Our PROTA what he does is to resign himself and thinks that at least he will be able to listen to the conversations without being noticed, that he will be able to gather information. He even hears some classmates talking about a girl called the EMPERATRESS. The PROTA realizes that the EMPERATRESS was very famous in one of the worlds during the 10 years and apparently was a student of that university. Other students also had another conversation and wondered when a dungeon would appear. Our PROTA asks Eartha about what a dungeon was and she explains that they are traps that First, God puts food in the dungeons to bring the monsters, and once they are there he blocks them so they can't get out. Instead, some humans, depending on their level, can enter if they meet the required level to enter and exit, and thus destroy the monsters. Then our PROTA wants to know that why if they exist they don't leave the monsters there and the problem is over. Eartha answers that the dungeons cease to exist in a certain time and that is why the monsters cannot stay there. He also explains that there are monsters that are more intelligent and do not get trapped in the dungeons, others that are powerful enough and can break the traps, and even that there are some monsters that can create more traps and disguise themselves. That is why he recommends that it is always important to never let your guard down. Moment later, the professor begins to give his class about how important it is to adapt to this new society, the regulations that exist, the rules for the use and even the use of mana. But the rest bores our PROTA and he only thinks that it is not really important to have a degree, but really to have the ability to use mana. But he is interrupted by Eartha who tells him that the most efficient way to train mana is to hunt monsters. But our PROTA tells him that he doesn't want to do anything dangerous. Eartha explains that they are still in the initial phase of the Great Cataclysm, that some of the monsters are weak and that he needs to hunt many weak monsters so he can increase his experience and level to train his mana. But our PROTA explains that he is only level 1 and can't even use mana like the others. Eartha tells him that he has a very good physique, even capable of easily defeating monsters of level 25. He is surprised. She tells him that they can try it right now. At that moment all the classmates were looking out the window, that there are some kind of giant insects outside the school. Eartha tells the PROTA that the tutorial is over and that humanity now has to defend itself. At that moment most people think about what they should do, where they can flee, where are the military so they can protect them. While in the classroom, all students only think about fleeing. Minutes later all run scared and leave the PROTA alone. Then Eartha tells him to get into action, that it is time and he can fight them. So he decides to make several weapons with the desks of the classroom, so he can defeat the monsters. Eartha congratulates him and asks him how he made several weapons so fast, and he answers that he had enough time to learn about craftsmanship and many things. Eartha remembers what Lita said, that our PROTA was alone and didn't know how to do anything. Once he had the weapons ready, he regretted not having brought his spear. And the PROTA tells him that he wants to hide himself so the other people don't discover his identity. Then he thinks of wearing a mask. Some giant insects appear destroying the city. Then our PROTA appears from the heights only with the mask and his weapons, and begins the attack with a swift kick from the sky, hitting the insects. One by one he destroys them. With each insect destroyed, he begins to increase his levels of experience. In his state appear the notifications that he has been evolving the skills he has. Then he understands and gets excited knowing that this is the way to level up quickly. He also discovers that by claiming the life of each opponent, he can get more strength and increase his power. Likewise, his mana level grows. During the fight, RPROTA appears surrounded by a group of giant insects. As he had never attacked in a group, he thought of taking advantage of that moment, and there he restarts the fight. He begins to give withering blows and kicks, which allow him to quickly annihilate all the insects. While he is fighting, Eartha is guiding him and giving him attack recommendations, so that he is much more effective, and with each movement, he becomes more lethal as he kills the different monsters. Eartha advises the PROTA, telling him that he must always be active. More giant insects continue to appear, but our PROTA does not flinch, and much more confident he launches into combat. Moving at high speed, he makes his way through the monsters and gradually destroying each one that gets in his way. During the fight, a giant mosquito hits him with its sting, but our PROTA is unharmed. On the contrary, the mosquito's sting is destroyed when it hits his body. There, Eartha realizes that the PROTA's skin is tough, thanks to the extreme training he did during all those years, allowing him to overcome the limits of a human. Our PROTA, and with an accurate blow, annihilates the mosquito. Although our PROTA has destroyed several monsters, more reinforcements keep arriving, and Eartha warns him that he must be careful. For a moment, our PROTA finds himself surrounded by a large number of insect-like monsters, but with the utmost confidence, he just takes his weapons and exclaims it's time to exterminate bugs. And with agile movements and with the use of his homemade weapons, he blows up the bugs, gaining experience, stamina, strength, and mana. Then our PROTA is surprised by some cosmic rays, which destroy other insects, which he realizes that it is a young woman with long hair and a gem on his forehead, who with one hand manages to emit those rays. Our PROTA wonders who is this unknown woman and thinks she may be a magician, but Eartha interrupts him, telling him not to lose concentration and continue killing the monsters. Simultaneously, they begin to destroy the insects between the unknown woman and our PROTA. Eartha tells him that the unknown woman has a huge level of mana, as it can generate very fast lightning attack. Finally, our PROTA annihilates the last monster that gives him a high level of experience. After the epic battle ends, people slowly begin to come out of their hiding places, and they are amazed and happy. Our PROTA is a little exhausted. Minutes later, the military arrive and explain that they could not arrive earlier because their vehicle had crashed, and they are surprised to find all the monsters dead. Eartha guides the PROTA to check the entrails of one of the corpses of the insect-type monsters, as he can find a mana stone, with which he can assemble better artifacts because it serves as basic material. By breaking the hardest part of the exoskeleton, our PROTA reaches the maximum level of killing. The military look at our PROTA in amazement, wondering who he is, what is his level, and how is he so strong. Soon people approach our PROTA and take pictures of him, and he feels a little embarrassed because he is not used to people interacting with him. However, no one will recognize him because he still has his mask on. The unknown woman approaches him and asks him if he can help her with the killing. And that's how our PROTA met the EMPERATRIX for the first time. Hey, if you are liking the video, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like, and hit the notification bell to notify you when new videos are uploaded. The EMPERATRESS asks our PROTA to please butcher the monsters, that she could do it for her, since she saw him when he did one. He asks how much she will give him. Remember that when you butcher the monsters you can get mana stones. She offers him 30% and then corrects and offers 40%. Our PROTA happily accepts the deal and begins to gut the monsters. But he also begins to hear people talking about him, saying things like, apparently he shoots lightning, and our PROTA keeps thinking that he doesn't do that. He was only the EMPERATRESS. Others say he killed some monsters with his lightsabers, and our PROTA knows they are just javelins, but he would really like to have something like that. At the end, Eartha tells him that his stealth ability is great. You can do whatever you want with the mask and no one will remember it well. He suddenly felt sad and says that he wishes that at least people would realize that he is there. In one of the entrails of the monster, he gets a precious gem and gives it to the EMPERATRESS. Once he finishes disemboweling the monsters, he says goodbye. But before leaving, one of the soldiers tells him that before he has to ask him something if he can cooperate. Suddenly, a lightning bolt hits this soldier, who was a lieutenant. The lightning bolt was sent to him by the EMPERATRESS. Then our PROTA takes a bag with his obtained gems and decides to leave quickly before things get out of control. However, Eartha explains to him that he should not worry. With his ability, he goes unnoticed. And indeed, as soon as our PROTA has taken a few steps, people look surprised looking where he has gone. He tries to make signs and greet them, but it does not work. His stealth ability works as usual, and everyone thinks he ran away quickly in an oversight. Again, he insists on getting their attention, but it does not work. He feels a little sad and confused, between wanting to be recognized or go unnoticed. Eartha encourages him by telling him not to worry. Night falls and we see the PROTA sitting in a park. Eartha asks him what he wants to do. He answers that he is going to try to make a defensive armor using his intuition, but he considers that it is a little difficult, so that at least he will make some wrist and knee pads. It is true, Eartha explains to him that it is a little difficult to handle the products obtained from the monsters, and that it is necessary that he gets a real master to do it. RPROTA proudly tells him that he is a true master of the earth. Eartha is left remembering Lita when she cried disconsolate because the PROTA according to did not know how to do anything. That they have mercy, and then exclaims her name Lita. RPROTA hearing her say the name with embarrassment smiles and asks her if she also misses her. Eartha answers that yes, she really misses her at that moment, while she has the image in her head thinking of hanging her for so many lies she has said about RPROTA, since she has been a very manipulative angel. Eartha finds herself watching PROTA as he is looking for a way to make armor. Then she asks him if he knew anything about mana crafting. He replies that no, he had no idea, but he was very motivated to learn it. He asks if it is a new skill to please teach him, as he likes to learn new skills. She tells him she will teach it, but calmly, to let the pressure off. RPROTA is a little embarrassed to be so intense. The class begins and Eartha explains to him that mana crafting is in charge of using mana crystals, which are similar to magic stones, that allow him to create artifacts that can grant special powers to things, like armor and weapons, which is related to blacksmithing. RPROTA interrupts Eartha to teach him faster. As he is very intense, she slaps him to calm down. She continues the class and explains to him to begin with that mana crafting first you need to prepare the materials and magic stones to create armor or mana crystals with properties similar to stones. RPROTA asks her how is that. She places an example, something like a dragon heart. You place the magic stone next to you and synchronize while creating the gear. Once finished, finally grind the magic stone and rub it on the surface of the gear. That is the basic form, which in turn will raise the performance of the weapon or gear. But above the basic, there is the mana crafting that gives additional special abilities. That is the applied form. But she concludes by telling him that the applied form is very difficult and he won't be able to perform it with the current mana he has. As RPROTA is characterized by being a constant and persevering person, he asks Eartha to explain to him, and despite his stubbornness, she agrees and tells him that in order to grant special abilities, a master must know how to control mana, and that if he consumes mana or magic stones he could create the equipment he wants, with abilities such as ice or fire, and that really the quality of the stones, the master's mana and his will are important when it comes to granting abilities. The PROTA. He keeps thinking about everything that Eartha has explained to him, and decides to start since he has not tried it before. He quickly makes some protectors, then begins to finally release the powder of the ground stone. Eartha is surprised how fast RPROTA learns, and thinks that he can develop a great power. She congratulates him for having built a defensive armor, and asks him what he will do now. He answers that he has not finished yet, that he still has a magic stone. He concentrates and tries to use the mana of the magic stone. Then for a few moments he manages to appear a mantis scythe, but for not having enough mana, the stone begins to break. Eartha, realizing that he almost succeeded, grants him part of his mana, and so a beautiful stone is formed that begins to shine more and more in the palm of RPROTA. As the seconds pass, flashes are observed. Eartha thinks that he failed, but we see how little by little he managed to fuse the ability of the mantis scythe to his wrist protector. Eartha is surprised but congratulates him since he achieved it in his first attempt and only with a little help of mana that she gave him. She again asks him what he will do, to which he answers to run away, since during the process of creating the weapon, one of the swings had been broken. In another moment, a reporter appears on TV talking on the news about the two people who disappeared after the attack of the monster. You can see that they are the EMPERATRESS and RPROTA. It is also said that the government is in the process of looking for these citizens with skills to form a team. PROTA's mom is worried. She tells him to please stay at home. He tells her not to worry, that he only goes to school. However, his mom is worried and tells him that there are many monsters, that it is very dangerous. RPROTA tells him not to worry, that if he sees something he will run away. Then his mother is a little calmer and tells him that he is fine but to be careful. Finally, she says goodbye and tells him that he is going to school. Being on the street, he feels more comfortable that he is not locked in his house, but he is a little uncomfortable that his mother is worrying about him. Eartha instead explains to him that this is an ability that mothers have to worry about their children. She even gives as an example that there are penguin moms who can detect the cry of their baby from a distance, and that is a useful skill for survival. RPROTA, on the other hand, makes a face because he thinks that it would be a trauma if even his mom could not find him. that it had already happened with God that he could not find him. Then to change the subject, she talks about what they saw on the news and wants to know what he thinks about the government is creating a unit of users of skills. The PROTA answers that he is not interested because he is his family first and he does not trust her to work with the government. She does not criticize him. While they continue walking, he comments that he wants to see the EMPERATRIZ again. Eartha questions him, asking him if it is because he likes her, to which our PROTA answers that he is not interested. But on the contrary, he is surprised by the skills she has. Eartha mocks him, asking if women do not attract him physically anymore, because maybe his physical training was too hard. The PROTA gets annoyed, explaining that it's not that he has libido problems, but that he's not really interested. The reason is Lita, she mocks, but he avoids the topic and explains that he wants to see the EMPERATRIX because he's curious about her ability to use her mana. Then he remembers some moments when the EMPERATRESS threw lightning fast. Suddenly Eartha interrupts the conversation, telling him that he felt very close the presence of a pack of monsters, of wolves and wild dogs led by a wolf with level 35. Our PROTA is intimidated, telling her that they are many, and the leader is too high level. He questions her, telling her that according to the high-level monsters did not appear so fast. She explains that she did not want to reveal her concerns to an inferior being. The PROTA remembers Lita and makes the comparison. He knows that Eartha gives the impression of establishing a line between superior and inferior beings. Instead, Lita was a love and he misses her. Eartha interrupts his thoughts and is sincere, telling him that the Earth is not in a normal state and that she needs his help. Later we see the PROTA heading to the place where the wolf pack is. During the way, Eartha explains to him that God transported all humanity before the Great Cataclysm and sent them to train them to use the mana. However, he left the animals on Earth because he thought they would be fine for the 10 years that are planned. However, due to an unknown error, the flow of time on Earth was distorted, and the 10 years on other worlds became 1,000 years on Earth. Our PROTA is surprised to learn that he spent too much time only in the company of Lita. Continuing with the explanation, although the time was reset, the animals that were supposed to live only 10 years lived 1,000 years, suffering a drastic change. In short, the monsters of the Earth are stronger than those of other worlds, and the Earth needs his help. Eartha tells him that the heavens are making the move to restore the balance, but while that happens, he must destroy the monsters, and of course then be rewarded by the superior beings. Minutes later, we see the PROTA who has reached the roof of a building from where he is observing the pack. He exclaims that it is a very hard and troublesome task, and for that reason he loves it because he likes challenges. Saying these words, our PROTA launches into the attack with his spear, impacting and killing several wolves. As he annihilates monsters, he gains levels of experience, levels up, and increases his stats in various areas. Eartha is surprised to see him in action. Second by second, he is eliminating the threats of monsters. People begin to flee the site when they realize the presence of wolves and wild dogs. Some people try to use the skills learned, but do not have enough mana. They can only ask for help, and our hero, the PROTA, appears, who with quick movements launches the attack, killing the monsters, even one of the people when one of the beasts is about to kill him. The PROTA tears the beast to pieces, leaving him on the ground. The PROTA is notified that he must choose a class in order to continue leveling up. At the same time, people recognize him as the masked man who had been in the previous incident. Eartha congratulates him, telling him that he already has fans. And without paying much attention, he continues eliminating the ferocious beasts. During the confrontations, he realizes that he is not leveling up because he has not selected a class. Before understanding the message, one of the wolves launches a powerful howl, and quickly our PROTA is surrounded by several wolves and armed only with his spear. Without thinking much, decides to advance towards the beasts, and is leaving a trail of blood as he goes, beheading them, while increasing in experience with each one, attack after attack. The PROTA is victorious, leaving unharmed. He uses his spear nimbly and ends the lives of the wolves. The people who are watching nearby are surprised by the exploits of the PROTA. However, they do not realize that a wolf is heading towards them and has a person under his claws. The public watches, waiting for the PROTA to do, and with an accurate movement slits the throat of the wolf, thus freeing the hostage and gaining more experience. Minutes later, he decides to release his spear. It is a plan, for the beasts think he has lost it, and the beasts rush to kill him. But with his own fists, he knocks out one of the wolves, putting into practice the fights he had with Lita. And between fists and legs, he eliminates the monsters. Eartha only observes, watching how our PROTA exterminates the wolves, only with his training. The excited people admire his skills and strength. With a last karate blow, he eliminates the last beast. Hey, if you are liking the video, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like, and hit the notification bell to notify you when new videos are uploaded. At the end of the fierce battle, the military arrive at the site and point at the PROTA, and he is surprised. Also, the rest of the people begin to boo the military, explaining that he is a hero. Seconds later, a lieutenant arrives, who demands that they lower their weapons. That everything is a confusion. After cordoning off the perimeter, the lieutenant explains that they came pointing because they thought there were still monsters in the area. However, during the conversation, our PROTA uses the ability of stealth and disappears, and decides to proceed to butcher the bodies of the beasts. At that moment, he is seen again by the lieutenant, who invites him to work with the army, but he refuses. Suddenly, one of the beasts rises and our PROTA annihilates it using only his hands. Later, we see the lieutenant disappointed that the PROTA did not accept the proposal. However, he approaches and she thinks that he meditated things. But instead he offers to buy the bodies of the beasts, as he knew that the corpses are useful and so he could get some money. Later, the lieutenant receives a call from her superiors. She receives the order that she must take our PROTA. She explains that he does not want, and they insist that she must use any method to capture him. At the end of the call, our PROTA appears, requesting that the money be paid in cash. In turn, he finds some crops of mana stones, and he asks Eartha if he can eat them, but she warns him that it can be very dangerous. Later, we see that the lieutenant appears with a high sum of money in a briefcase. Eartha suggests that it is a lot of money, that they only want to establish an alliance with him. The lieutenant, after giving him the money, tries to seduce him, but he does not pay attention. To divert the looks, the PROTA activates a button and many flashlights are activated, which allows him to go in stealth mode. While they walk, Eartha tells him that there is one day left for the skies begin to investigate properly, and so he leaves, thinking that his day had just begun and it would surely be very long. A few blocks later, we see our PROTA, who is reviewing the options menu to choose and win his first class. Among the options he sees are spearman, swordsman, fighter, blacksmith, squire, hunter, among others, including the option of murder. He has 23 options in total. Among so many options, the PROTA asks Eartha, and after a pause she recommends him to be a spearman since he can use his spear, or a fighter could also work, since he has trained both skills. Then the PROTA remembers when he was training with Lita, who already recommended him to start with spears. He makes a kind of flashback in which he remembers every time he fought with Lita and he ended up with a beating, but she congratulated him for having resisted for at least 3 minutes. Now he was grateful for all the beatings he received from Lita, because thanks to that he was stronger. Anyway, Eartha explains to him that it is not necessary to worry about the election, because as he goes up in level, later on he will be able to get second and third classes. The PROTA gets frustrated because he had not read that kind of information on the internet. She only replies that social networks are a waste of time. After so much deciding, the PROTA finally chooses the spearman option, since that way he would have a better power of destruction. Eartha congratulates him for his choice, suggesting him that this way he will be able to create better spears as he finds different materials. After the choice, our PROTA calls Eartha's attention, asking him what does fuzzy spearman mean. She explains him that it is a modification since it is a unique type of work. He asks her what she means by unique job. She answers that it means that it is a class only for one person and it depends on all the paths and experiences he has gone through and the records obtained from all the battles, thus unlocking that kind of unique class. Eartha, annoyed, tells him to choose it without hesitation, since having a unique job, he is specialized for being the best, which has higher requirements to level up than other jobs, but still worth it. Then our convinced PROTA selects the option. From there, the menu notifies him that he has become a fuzzy spearman, that he has increased his attack strength by 10% and other skills that also increased. After reading all the benefits received by the chosen class, he realizes that there is an option that says bloody spearman, and he questions himself about why he didn't choose that option and why he got a fuzzy spearman. While discussing with Eartha about which option he should have chosen, his body starts to transform and gain more muscle mass, transforming his body. Eartha explains to him that his body got stronger because he won his first class, and once he has chosen a type of class he can't go back. She also wants to know if he gained any kind of skill, but he answers no. She reassures him by explaining not to worry, that most people don't. Also, that possibly when he does his first and second job, the records will accumulate, giving him a very strong skill in his third job. Eartha silently ponders the reasons why he may not have received skills, coming to the conclusion that he may gain an extraordinary skill on his third job. After the conversation and the election, she tells him that it is time to look for monsters, not to worry about the briefcase, that she put an invisibility spell on it. She explains to him that he should only hunt monsters in his area, that as well as him there are other representatives. While they are running, he asks if the EMPERATRESS was a representative, to which Eartha answers that of course, and that in fact he should worry about having more jobs than the other representatives in order to obtain greater rewards. While they run, the PROTA checks his cell phone and finds a news that near his area there is a monstrous bear, that even the army was attacking it without causing any damage. Moments later, we see the giant bear frightening the people in the area. When Eartha arrives at the site, he warns him that he better run away, that he cannot beat it. We only hear the cries for help, and our PROTA gets excited and comments that today he will make bear stew. But Eartha contradicts him, making the correction that he has no resistance to poison. Finally, our PROTA positions himself in front of the beast wielding his spear. It is the 4th day of the Great Cataclysm, and the military is in the area shooting at the bear. But the bullets do not hurt it. With its powerful and sharp claws, with one of its paws it destroys a vehicle of the place. As it walks, the bear is destroying everything in its path. Eartha, seeing what is happening, only criticizes that the humans were sent to train in other worlds, but they prefer to use weapons and technology that are obsolete. Then, without wasting any more time, our PROTA puts on his mask, takes his spear, and after activating the power increases, decides to attack the bear. Taking advantage of the fact that he was on his back, with an accurate blow hits directly into the skull of the beast. The military and recognize him with the nickname Sun Gain Bolt, in honor of the school where he first appeared and in memory of the famous fast runner. As always, he disappears very quickly. Continuing with the story, our PROTA thinks it is a stupid nickname. However, he continues with the fight, realizing that with a single blow he will not be able to defeat it. He remembers that it is a Class 2 monster, so he turns to the people and to the military, recommending them that if they want to live they should flee. Then we see how the bear continues destroying everything around him and the people flee fearing for their lives. Then we see the PROTA attacking the bear, making continuous cuts in different parts of the body. And although the bear tries to attack him, our PROTA skillfully manages to dodge the claws with his agile movement. After a moment, the PROTA tries to get the maximum potential to his spear, remembering his training with Leah, in which she explained that he should concentrate on focusing all his weight on a single point, without thinking. So much that he practiced, and the most he achieved was to cut a strand of Lita's hair. Against an angel, that was a breakthrough. Having agreed, our PROTA focused on concentrating on a single, and launching himself against the beast, focused on the skull, being this his chosen point to apply all the power he had. In this way he managed to impact violently on the bear and tearing its head, making it splash a lot of blood everywhere, and thus the bear fell annihilated on the ground, allowing him to gain a lot of experience and acquire among many benefits the critical strike skill. The PROTA feels satisfied that his spear has resisted the attack. To celebrate, he decides to start with the revision of the parts of the creature to see what he could find. But, to the misfortune of the PROTA, the bear, when it died, decreased its size. It had a gigantitis ability that was undone when it died. After the fight, Eartha reminds him that every time he fights against monsters he will have a great influence on the development of his skills and his own growth. Also congratulate him to continue doing great things and learning more skills. Then, while he was rummaging in the beast, a black vehicle arrives. The door opens and some strangers get out and say that from that moment on they will take care of it. They ask where the monster is. Eartha comments to our PROTA that it seems that other users with skills have just arrived, and our PROTA looks at them with contempt, thinking, what's the point if the fight is over? Then the young people, who get out of the vehicle, are approached by the military, indicating that everything was over. However, they expected some fight or exercise, as they had heard that the monster was Class 2. Then one of the young people notices that our PROTA is in front of the bear doing the butchering process and recognizes him with the nickname of Sun Gain Bolt. Another one of the young people stares at our PROTA, thinking that how is it possible that he alone liquidated the bear, if it was only the 4th day of the Great Cataclysm. Then the group of young people approach to congratulate the PROTA and ask him different questions. But he does not answer, nor does he want to talk to anyone. One of them gets upset, but another calms him down. Finally, one of the military men approached one of them, telling them that they had work in another place, to please support him, while our PROTA continues with the butchery without paying much attention. However, one of them approaches to greet him, introducing himself as Dueujon. He extends his hand, but our PROTA ignores him. Later they begin a conversation about the importance of being the strongest, and a debate is given. Each one is giving his point of view. Finally, the PROTA concludes the conversation by telling him that he should not try to be better than anyone, only to be the best version of himself. A few moments later, the PROTA does not find magic stones, but instead gets enough leather, product of the skin of the beast. Then comes a military, who after giving him a talk, recommends an application that allows you to see on a map where the monsters appear. Incredulous, our PROTA asks why he gives him the information, but the lieutenant tells him that it is for the good of the citizens. When the PROTA retires, another military man approaches the lieutenant and asks him why he did not insist on trying to convince him to cooperate with them. But the more intelligent lieutenant explains that people like our PROTA should not try to control. They should only learn to coexist and help each other when necessary. Eartha realizes the situation and knows that it is the best, because if our PROTA felt obliged to cooperate, perhaps he would destroy the entire army just to not follow orders. After activating the application, the PROTA tells Eartha that he has received 3 alerts of monsters on the map near his area and asks her what should they do. She, with a confident smile, only answers that she must defeat all 3. With great confidence, our PROTA leaves in the direction of the monsters. So he defeated a rat, a mantis, and a bird, all creatures of great size, and regrets for having risen only 1 level. Then Eartha explains that this is because the 3 monsters were weaker than the wolf and the bear, also reminds him that his unique class forces him to acquire more experience. The PROTA, to celebrate, tells Eartha with pride that at least he has obtained large amounts of money for the corpses of the creatures, and now with so much money he can buy a property. But she interrupts him, suggesting that by using the money so quickly he runs the risk of being discovered. But as a gift he will erase the memory of the officers. Listening to her, our PROTA becomes very happy, telling her that she is the best. The next morning, we see that our PROTA checks his menu and finds a message that says that the connection with the other world has been restored. This way people will be able to go to the other world when they were summoned to perform missions and thus get compensation. Nervous and trembling, our PROTA thinks yes, it is where they were summoned. Then that meant that he could be alone again. Minutes after learning the news, he calls Eartha to know what she knows about it, and she explains that the monsters of the earth are becoming stronger and stronger, so the decision was made to send them to the other world to gain more experience. Angry, our PROTA, he claims to her that then he would be alone again, and she sarcastically answers him that since the beginning he has been alone. What is the difference? Then he thinks about the questions he will ask if mother, but Eartha advises him to just answer that he has nothing to learn there. She tells him that she regrets his situation. He asks her that then he cannot go to the other world. She answers that it is not impossible, but for that he must become a greater being. If he will achieve that, then he could go to the other world and even to the heaven, since he would be at the same level as the angels. He thinking about that possibility, he thinks that he could see Lita again. Eartha thinks that it seems that Lita and the PROTA have a long-distance relationship. Eartha explains to him that anyway he must train very hard for that to happen, but it could last at least a millennium. He, with the tenacity that characterizes him, says that he can easily wait that long. Minutes later, they broadcast on television that the government has decreed a state of emergency. Therefore, all schools and businesses will be closed. People should stay at home so that the military can hunt the monsters with the least number of casualties. Then the PROTA advises his parents that they should go to the other world, because monsters will continue to appear and it is better to prepare to be stronger to face them. His father understands and motivates him to be better every day. He says goodbye and teleports to the other world. His mother begins to say goodbye and give him other advice, but before leaving she tells him that she knows that he is the hero of the mask, that she has recognized him on television, that despite that costume a mother always recognizes her son. Before saying goodbye she recommends him not to trust other people, that he should be cautious in trusting others. Besides being proud of him, with tears in his eyes, our PROTA says goodbye to his mother. Then she goes to the other world. Then being alone he realizes that the dishes are dirty after lunch, and remembers that with Lita he did not have to be washing the dishes. For his part, Eartha tells him that he will go to heaven to get his search rewards. The PROTA only asks him to bring ice cream on his return. Hey, if you are liking the video, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like and hit the notification bell to notify you when new videos are uploaded. Then our PROTA, being alone, goes to a storage unit he bought the night before with the money he has been collecting and decides that this is going to be his workshop. Without wasting any time and with the only things he has, he starts working with the rawhide and bones, even though he doesn't have any metal. He thinks that with the bones should be enough to make something. Unfortunately, taking care of the leather and hardening it may take some time, and our PROTA wonders how long it can really take to finish creating an equipment. Then a voice behind him answers him that he can take care of that with magic. He turns around and realizes that it is Eartha, and he just asks if she brought ice cream. Suddenly she, using her magic, grows to her original size, and our PROTA asks if she used some kind of magic to increase size. She only answers him that she was using magic all the time since they met, and that's why she had seen her in her reduced size. Without wasting any more time, Eartha asks the PROTA to shake her hand to give her the reward she had gone to get. When she shakes his hand, she realizes that she has been unlocked a level 1 Sky Quest level. Furthermore, all his stats have increased in level, and he has been decreed as the most successful among the participants of the mission. Therefore, he would receive additional rewards, thus obtaining the Eternal Flame. Our PROTA does not know what this means. She, the furnace, where there is a flame of fire. He tells her that he has not, and she explains that it is a flame that will grow continuously and will not go out. It is a flame of the heaven. That's exactly what he needed, exclaims our PROTA. Eartha answers that he knew it. That's what Lita had told him. RPROTA excitedly asks about Lita. Eartha tells him that she was very worried about him from the heavens. RPROTA sighs excited to have news about Lita and exclaims that she really understands what he needs. Eartha also tells him that she has good news because the heavens have assigned him another mission, as he can't go to the other world. Then RPROTA asks her what that mission consists of. She explains that he will have to create a dungeon on Earth. RPROTA is left wondering how he can create a dungeon, so he gets a little nervous and tells her that he doesn't know how to do it. Even to avoid the topic, he offers her something to eat, but she interrupts him, telling him that the heavens gave him that mission. After the conversation, RPROTA complains to Eartha, telling him that the plans he has been told never end well. Then Eartha gives him an explanation, which does not satisfy the PROTA. After discussing about it, she explains him that he developed amazing skills in forging tools during his training. That is why he is the only person able to build a dungeon on Earth, and that is why he has been chosen. Our PROTA gets upset, telling her that he doesn't want to accomplish the mission. However, he is left thinking that she is flattering him, and that is very suspicious. Then he claims that she is telling him positive things about him, because she knows that it is an extremely difficult task. Then she tells him that this way everyone wins, they accomplish the orders, and he gets the reward for his efforts. Our PROTA asks what happens if he doesn't do the task. Eartha replies that the monsters would have nowhere to go and mankind would then suffer for it. Already resigned, PROTA Eartha hands him the blueprints and a series of magic stones and 3 strange metals that are used only by higher beings and are not available on Earth. Eartha tells him that I can use the tools that he has also brought him. The PROTA is very happy and excited to be able to use all that, but Eartha clarifies that anyway he must return the tools once the mission is over, because it is only a loan. Then our PROTA starts to review the tools, trying to see how he can use them correctly. Eartha interrupts him, indicating that he only needs him to create magical tools to attract the monsters. She shows him the blueprint to review how to create the Trap of Doom. She knows that it will not be easy, it is a difficult task, but she also knows that he will have an excellent reward. Having said this, our PROTA gets down to work. He puts on his uniform. To begin with, the first thing he does is to use the Eternal Flame, placing some magic stones to increase the power of the flame. So our PROTA continues working, trying to forge the trap, while he thinks he has not made a mistake using the stones and the flame. Eartha is watching him as little by little our PROTA is working. After a while, he manages to create a basic form and tells Eartha that he is a little nervous. Please do not blame him if he fails. But she only tells him that if he fails, he should melt it and start again, that it will only take a long time. However, a few minutes go by and our PROTA is super concentrated developing the cube, and Eartha, while watching him, understands why Lita started to feel something for our PROTA since she was only looking at him for a millennium. Finally, our PROTA places one of the tools on the table and exclaims aloud that it is finished. Eartha, surprised, asks him if he really finished. Immediately appears in the menu the skills unlocked, and in his hands begins to shine the cube. Once the cube is finished, our PROTA gives it to Eartha to check it. She tells him that it is very well included. She thinks it is perfect, even though it was created by a human. Our PROTA is very happy knowing that he did it very well. Then she explains that it is time for the Manacraft, so she would call some of her fellow angels to help her with the task. Then the PROTA asks if by any chance Lita would be there. But Eartha says no. A few seconds pass and Eartha uses the ring that the angels have. With that, she summons the other angels, who when they arrive think that our PROTA has completed the dungeon quickly. When they all arrive, Eartha hurries them to begin the process. Then they give some stones to the PROTA and explain to him that he has to establish the will to complete the trap of destruction, and then they would take care of the rest. The 3 angels simultaneously touch our PROTA to give him the energy he needs, so he begins to feel the mana that is oppressing his body. The angels explain to him that it is by the power of the superior beings. With every second, our PROTA tries to concentrate, to channel the energy, because he is building a trap to bring the monsters. So time goes by, and the angels realize that he is really a human with amazing abilities. Even one of the angels feels that he is going to faint. Another one of them thinks that the PROTA is an amazing being. Finally is finished the destruction earth trap, and the angels are surprised how our PROTA could have achieved it in the first attempt, since they thought he was going to fail several times. Even the alpha and beta options were attached to the trap. Our PROTA asks what are those options. Eartha explains him that they are additional properties as a result of the work of the Manacraft blacksmith, and that they appear randomly, depending on the luck of the materials and the skills of the craftsman. The angels congratulate him for the achievement and tell him that now it is time to set up the dungeon. Eartha asks him if he wants to see the activation of the trap. RPROTA happily accepts the invitation. Moments later, we see the angels flying and carrying the PROTA. While they go to the site, they are making certain kinds of jokes, reminding him that he was the only one forgotten by the gods, something that does not cause him much grace. Being in the place indicated, Eartha took the bucket and throws it into the air. RPROTA asks what has happened, and one of the angels responds not to worry, that this is part of the plan. In another place, we see that the military are amazed because some of the monsters that they are attacking begin to change their behavior. Some stop moving, and others change direction. One of the angels, despite his disbelief, admits that RPROTA is good at cheating. Eartha says that the dungeons in other places have begun to activate, and RPROTA asks how is that possible, if they were obsolete as she had told him. But one of the angels explains to him that what happened was that he added a spell in the destruction trap that changed the energy of other dungeons into terrestrial ones. Changing the subject, one of the angels asks Eartha and the PROTA if they were really close, and they both admit that they were not really close. Little by little, the monsters are heading towards the trap, and in a kind of flashback, our PROTA appears, remembering everything he lived through and how he was forgotten for 1,000 years. But thanks to what he is currently doing, he knows that it was not a mistake what happened, but he could not have made it through all those years without the company of Lita, who is currently missing him a lot. So he wants to be stronger so that no one can control him and seek his own freedom. The next day, our PROTA is eating in front of the TV, watching the news, where they report that the dungeon functions have been activated in different places. After eating, he goes to wash his dishes and thinks about when he will see his parents again. Eartha interrupts him from his thoughts, telling him that the dungeons are working properly without any problem, and congratulates him. Then he asks her if it is still necessary to build the 27 additional traps, which he had requested in the beginning, and wants to know why the angels have left if there is still work to be done. She explains that in order to make the trap of destruction, a lot of mana is needed, and it takes at least 2 days to recover. Then the PROTA wants to know if they are the only angels, and mentions, for example, Lita. Eartha answers that there are many, and that she cannot come momentarily to Earth because she is doing other tasks to ensure that things work well. Disappointed, our PROTA regrets that she cannot come, then already finished the conversation. He decides to go to the workshop to start with the foundation. And so they walk and talk about different topics until they finally arrive at the workshop of our PROTA. He gets ready to make some traps for tomorrow. Then Eartha, before he starts, congratulates him for the results obtained and for that he will give him a compensation gift. Also assures him that when he gives him the gift, he will not have time to make the traps. He is left thinking about what the gift could be, until she shows it to him, and it is the cure of the leather of the monster that he did not know how long it would last. He was delighted with the gift, and she was satisfied with the gift she had given him. Then our PROTA begins to make first some gloves and boots. With each modification he makes to the suit, he was unlocking new skills. Eartha looked at him surprised, seeing how our PROTA was handling excellently the strengthening techniques. Then he uses the bear skin to create an armor, so a day went by and our PROTA continued working. Eartha suggests him to rest, but he tells her that he is not tired, that he is close to finish. Eartha stays by his side watching the progress, and then the PROTA manages to unlock the power of defense and durability in the armor. So he is very happy with the work done. But he still has some bones as material, and he decides to add them to the suit and thus unlock hidden functions such as releasing sharp thorns as a means of counterattack if he receives damage, something like a porcupine. Eartha remembers that one of his armband weapons looked like a retractable blanket claw, so he asks him why he likes to hide jumping blades. Our PROTA just replies that he likes it because he is a man. Eartha also detects that in the armor the alpha and beta options were enabled. The PROTA realizes that he has some bones left, and with that he creates some knives to facilitate his work at the time of butchering. With each object he obtains significant improvements. And finally he makes a mask with the skull of one of the wolves. Finished the work, the PROTA dresses with everything he has built, including the new mask. While he admired his wardrobe, some loud noises are heard in the street. Eartha warns him that the sound is of someone who is fighting monsters. When they look out, they realize that there are people inside a building shouting that a big monster of second class has appeared. Eartha finds it strange that there are still monsters that have not yet been trapped by the dungeon. Then our PROTA tells her that he hopes that hopefully that beast is much weaker. She questions him, asking if he was afraid, but he replies that no, only that it is stronger. Then he will have to remove the leather and make a new armor before going out to fight. The PROTA reaches for his spear and makes a modification that allows him to turn it into a fatally sharpened steel spear, whose attack powers, durability, and additional bonuses make it amazing. Already in the street, the PROTA goes through the different streets until he finds the monster, and it is a gigantic leopard that even the anti-tank rockets that the military were using could not destroy it. So he decides to take action. Our PROTA puts on his mask, begins the attack. Eartha realizes that the leopard is much stronger than the bear, while the PROTA goes to the beast. One of the military tanks launches a missile that impacts against the face of the animal. They think it has been a successful shot, however they have not done any damage. The leopard is directed against the tank, and when it is about to chew it, our PROTA appears through the air wielding his spear, aiming directly at the eye of the jaguar, which manages to hit it with a critical hit. All the people who are in the audience begin to celebrate that Sungai and Bolt did not abandon them, and they are happy because he did not go to the other world. The leopard hurt by an eye is still alive. The military shoot and use all their potential weaponry, but the leopard resists without much difficulty. The monster throws a tank through the air, but our PROTA, with a fast movement, manages to reach the attack and rescues the soldiers who crewed it, leaving them in a safe place. Then the PROTA, standing right in front of the giant beast, Eartha warns him to be very careful, as the leopard has detected him, and his stealth ability will not work. But the PROTA, with his utmost confidence, answers him not to worry. He is an opponent he can defeat by fighting head-on. But together, before starting the attack, the military intervene and begin to shoot the beast. Also, the people who are around want to help our PROTA. But suddenly from the skies, lightning strikes the beast. People look for where the lightning came from, and from a helicopter they can see the EMPRATRESS, who had come to help. However, the leopard is still alive. Then our PROTA launches a direct attack against the leopard's face, while all the people watch in amazement, even the EMPRATRESS from the helicopter. When the PROTA is about to hit the giant beast, he activates the armor's ability, causing many sharp thorns to sprout around the armor. For that reason, he is proud of his invention, since it fulfills the function he wanted. As the minutes go by, our PROTA continues to make accurate attacks on the beast, who is gradually bleeding to death. Our PROTA moves at great speed, so much so that even Eartha warns him that he feels like vomiting. The giant leopard tries to flee, destroying whatever he gets in his way, even attacks our PROTA. But he, with his super speed and dexterity, manages to evade each blow. In a counterattack, he activates the critical hit, seriously wounding the beast. The people realize that the beast is weakened, and the military too. So they start shooting again, and the people in the streets try to help our PROTA by making attacks with their rudimentary weapons. Finally, the gigantic creature falls unconscious on the ground, and our PROTA thinks that everything is over. But the leopard begins to mutate into a third kind. The PROTA is surprised by what is happening, immediately begin to sprout tentacles from the wounds that has. Our PROTA realizes that the evolution level to the third kind Tua has not concluded, and then must take the opportunity to destroy it. In a timely manner, lightning strikes the beast, sent by the EMPRATRESS, who is trying to help our PROTA. She explains that the attacks will not be enough because the level of the beast is very high, and no matter how many cuts they make, tentacles continue to come out, so they must do as much damage as possible so that it cannot regenerate. The EMPRATRESS shouts to him that she possesses buff magic. He answers her. What does the buff consist of? She only tells him that if he uses it, his mana will be exhausted, but that he can take advantage of it to do more damage. Therefore she will give it to him, and with that power he will be able to finish with the beast. Said this, she throws herself from the helicopter without thinking, landing where the PROTA is, being next to him. She explains him that she must be in physical contact to be able to give him the buff. That once transmitted, she will not be able to be of much help. Therefore she entrusts him her life. And so the EMPRATRESS begins with the process. Then our PROTA begins to acquire skills that increase his attack power, his movement speed, and the probability of critical hit, increasing by 50% for 30 seconds only. But after the effect is concluded for 3 minutes, all his skills will be reduced by half. Eartha wonders how a human can retain mana to be able to attack and have buff, while our PROTA begins to feel the energy and improvement. The EMPRATRESS warns him that if he fails to kill the beast, the military will use missiles that could cause significant casualties and much damage. Having said this, the PROTA, with all the power that the EMPRATRIZ gave him, manages to hit it with a critical hit and a lightning strike that are fulminating, finishing with the beast. In this way he acquires a great amount of experience and a record for having eliminated a leopard of level 87. Eartha congratulates him for exterminating the beast before it evolved to the third class. The EMPRATRESS asks our PROTA if the leopard is really dead. He answers that yes, he has even increased his level of experience. She answers that in her case no, because there is a group with him. Our PROTA does not know that there is a system by group, with which all participants could receive shared benefits from the experience received. The PROTA withdraws in sorrow because he did not know this modality. While he withdraws, the 3 minutes elapse, and his statistics are reduced by half. Eartha saves him, since the beast almost falls on him. After the battle, we can see our PROTA on top of the beast while the people present applaud him and celebrate his victory. However, he is not happy. Eartha asks him why he is not happy if he won, but he answers that due to the damage received by the multiple wounds, he will not be able to wear the new armor with the leopard skin. Some people approach the beast that has begun to diminish its size. Then the people of the place want to try to butcher it, but the PROTA interrupts them, and the EMPERATRESS also approaches. He asks her how the percentage will be. Then she answers that 60% for him, 20% for her, and 20% for the rest of the people. As the PROTA already knows how much his commission is, he takes a big leap and breaks the leopard's head, getting a second-class mana stone. Once obtained, he asks the EMPERATRESS how much it could be worth. She answers that it is equivalent to 60% of the agreed amount. But the rest of the people do not agree, since they consider that they also helped. Then, since everyone was complaining, he comes up with an idea: follow his mother's advice, solve conflicts with fists and not with words. He faces the public and tells them that if he does not get his agreed commission, there will be many problems. Everyone is embarrassed and intimidated, telling him to keep the stone. A few moments later, the EMPERATRIZ approaches our PROTA and proposes a business deal. If he can do the butchering, she will give him 40% more leather. He accepts immediately. When he finishes, the EMPERATRIZ communicates by cell phone to transport the material obtained. Then the people approach shyly and ask our PROTA for help them to distribute their share. Eartha tells the PROTA that really human beings are hopeless. First they complained about him taking the mana stone, and now they ask for his help. In order not to have to help them, the PROTA asks them for 50%. They get upset because he did the same for 40% for the EMPERATRIX. They agree, but during the process, they only complain that the measures are not the same, that the size looks different. Our stubborn PROTA flees the place. However, he is detected by the EMPERATRIX, even though he has the stealth ability active. She tells him that she wants to form a group with him. She also tells him that she had not seen another partner like him. She tells him that he is not so weak, so he will stay on Earth to perform difficult missions. She gives him a card with her contact number and says goodbye. Then our PROTA checks the card and reads Kang Mire, so he knows the real name of the EMPERATRESS. However, he does not pay attention, since he does not intend to call her. Another day we see our PROTA, who is in his workshop making new cubes. When he had the fifth one ready, Eartha comments to him that she is worried about what is happening on Earth, since almost a monster evolved to third class. With every comment she has, he answers her "Ask God." She claims him that he is very calm, in spite of being a very serious problem, since very few people have barely reached the level of first class. She goes on to explain that the balance of power is currently tilted towards monsters, that even though humans are increasing their power in other worlds, monsters are evolving at a faster rate. But our PROTA replies that he is not calm, but that he cannot do anything about it. He also asks her what has happened in other countries, and she replies that South Korea is the only place so far that monsters have started to evolve to the third class. After that conversation, the PROTA says that maybe they have evolved because of the trap of destruction. Eartha is left thinking that maybe the trap could have been the cause that the monsters felt the threat, generating an escape and an awakening. In summary, the monsters are trapped before their awakening, and their evolution occurs in the dungeons. And with the crossing of species, the PROTA thinks that it is worse to have them trapped. But Eartha explains to him that if they were free, they would devour humans instead of other monsters. But most monsters do not usually fight each other. That is why their growth slows down. Our PROTA worries and decides to continue to perform a destruction trap. Eartha realizes that our PROTA always wants to be doing new things. She knows that by being 1,000 years alone, with the world paralyzed, he became addicted to new experiences and stimulations of knowledge, so she feels a little empathy and motivates him to become stronger to experience more thing infinitely. At nightfall, the angels return, since they had recovered their mana. After having completed the destruction traps, the angels went to make dungeons in other countries. Although the PROTA does not know which countries they are going to, he only hopes that no dangerous monsters appear there. Eartha reassures him, telling him that if a Class 3 monster appears, it will not be his fault. On the contrary, he is doing an important job, normalizing the dungeons on Earth. He thanks her for her concern and tells her that he is very tired. She tells him to go to rest. Hey, if you are liking the video, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like and hit the notification bell to notify you when new videos are uploaded. Upon arriving home, our PROTA comes out of the shower, and upon seeing himself in the mirror, He notices that his body has become bigger and more muscular. She responds with irony that if she had barely noticed. It turns out that as he goes up a level, he will continue to grow. He replies that even his face has become more handsome. But Eartha responds that for a superior being his face is common, but for human standard, maybe he has become more attractive. Then the PROTA starts to make model poses in front of her, but she only yells at him that he won't let her watch TV. He laughs and tells her to go to sleep now, that she won't stay up all night watching TV. She is left eating a bag of chips while she thinks that what is really inside the PROTA. The next morning, our PROTA receives a notification of having awakened the maximum level of rest. Then Eartha arrives shouting that how is it possible that he has learned the ability to rest, if it is a skill of rank of the superior beings, that even she has not yet mastered it. Then he thinks it's a joke. However, he explains to Eartha that every night in the millennium that he was alone, she is once again surprised by the tenacity of our PROTA in investigating things to the maximum until putting them into practice. Disappointed, she tells him that it is already difficult to acquire the ability and much more to evolve it, and he achieved both. Then he asks what that ability is for, and she answers that to rest and sleep well, but our PROTA suspects that there is something else hidden and confronts her to tell him the truth. Eartha changes attire in teacher mode to explain to the PROTA about the evolution of skills and starts with that. The evolution of skills is a kind of achievement that is the extension of the acquisition of skills, something like a class promotion. It is based on the special records of existence to present a new and superior path. I could say it is a guide to the Akashic records. Our PROTA interrupts as a good student, asking her to please explain a little more in simple. Then she shows him an example of a before and after of how the comparison would look like. The skills of the PROTA that have fulfilled the conditions of evolution highlight TAIJUTSU, use of the spear, rest and stealth. Instead, butchery and blacksmithing do not have another level. It means that they have reached the maximum. He continues with the explanation of the status of his skills taking into account his current level, and that for that reason he had not mentioned the subject. For that reason, Eartha tells him to review the conditions of evolution that must meet the skills of rest. When reviewing them, the PROTA, he thinks that they are complicated. However, Eartha shows him some that are simpler, but he is still incredulous. Despite the discussion, she continues trying to motivate him. Although mentally he is analyzing certain variables of the conditions of our PROTA, reaching the conclusion that although his evolution is slow in the use and mastery of mana, he is a really strong being. Thanks to the fact that his evolution is slow in the use and mastery of mana, Eartha, in spite of everything, thinks in the potential that the PROTA has when he manages to dominate the mana, he could dominate the world. However, she believes that if someone could dominate the world, then that would be really dangerous. Days later, the PROTA's mom made him breakfast and left him a note about food issues and monsters, returning to the world where he was. When our PROTA gets up, he begins to have breakfast while watching the news on TV. There they presented the images of the results of the attack of the second-class monster that had occurred earlier. The PROTA tells him that it is the square where he had fought 2 days ago, and Eartha answers him that is the place where he left the corpse of the giant leopard, but in the news they show the place totally clean. The PROTA is surprised that in 2 days people have distributed the whole body, but Eartha has another theory. They continue watching the news and report that the people who were discussing about how to distribute the remains of the animal have disappeared without a trace, leaving our PROTA totally shocked. The reporter also states that some people think that one of the dungeons was opened and devoured it altogether, which makes the PROTA anguish, thinking that actually it could have been one of the dungeons. Eartha and the PROTA try to explain what could have happened. First, the giant leopard was definitely dead. Even the PROTA extracted the mana stone from it. Eartha explains that maybe the monster was pregnant, trying to remember the moment. The PROTA thinks he saw for a moment a black fur leopard. He regrets not having finished the dismantling of the body properly. That way nothing would have happened. Eartha corrects him, telling him that the fault was the greed of the humans, who were only concerned about claiming their share and did not let him do his job, but he feels guilty, thinking that many people died because of him, some of whom he helped and others who believed in him. Eartha looks at him sadly to see him discouraged. Then the PROTA explains why the monster fought so hard, because he wanted to hide the existence of the creature. Eartha accepts that possibility and adds that perhaps the baby has the ability of stealth. While they continue talking, they try to analyze what could have really happened. Perhaps to discuss the loot, people neglected the mother's body, and at birth the baby devoured them. After much thought, the PROTA tells Eartha that perhaps the time has come. The first creature of the 3rd class, Eartha, taking into account the stealth ability of the creature, has no doubt. Our PROTA decides not to wait any longer and decides to get into action, as he knows he will have a worthy opponent who, like him, has stealth skills, but surely has weaknesses such as low strength or defense. So he decides to go to the workshop to develop a new equipment, so he quickly dresses to go out, just in case he decides to have a support, and tries to call the EMPRATRIX. Earther recommends him not to call her from his mobile device so he is not identified. He accepts the suggestion and calls her from a phone booth. When the EMPRATRESS calls her, she only recognizes that it is a public phone number. When our PROTA answers, he greets her, but she does not recognize his voice. She asks who he is. He does not know what to answer. The first thing that comes to his mind is to say SUNGAI in bold, the nickname that other people have given him. Then she recognizes him. Then she wants to know the reason for his call. He explains that it is in relation to the news, and that there is a new very strong monster that has stealth ability. The protagonist on the phone where he has just called the Empress. She tells him to talk to the government and the state army to be on the alert. Eartha asks him what he will do, but he tells her to wait and she will see the result after a few minutes. Yuilhan has prepared several harpoons. These are used to hunt the whales, not only will serve for penetration. Also, once pierced, it has not been removed. He will not use an ordinary rope because it will break instantly. He will use the previous leopard skin to make it more resistant and not break so fast. He uses his mana power and craftsmanship so that all the materials are intensified and can level up to be stronger when using the harpoon. His attack has increased to 1050. His damage ability has increased by 20% and his durability is 960 over 960. Eartha is worried but still leaves him. After all that, she returns to the public telephone where she contacted the Empress and calls her back. She informs her that she is on her way to the place. She warns her that the pup has the ability of stealth. She will have to keep her guard up because she can catch it with a single mistake. The Prota is in the place. Everything is lonely. He shows himself with the low guard for the leopard to attack him. But nothing happens, so it is very strange. He should have already noticed it a while ago. Eartha tells him that his level of stealth compared to the cub is different, so even if he shows himself, she will cost him a little more. Yuilhan likes to hear that, but not at that moment when his plan is not working, and that when he starts to walk he feels the leopard. The harpoon has a 10% attack if I have it, and has the ability to aim. Yuilhan takes advantage of the creature does not see it and throws it as nailed, but not completely. This is because it is category 3 despite not reaching its fate. Completely has obtained a good aim. The creature has its health and armor lowered to specialize in stealth. The leopard turns and prepares to attack. Yuilhan puts on his mask and dodges the first attack that throws him. He takes the second harpoon and throws it at him, causing a critical attack in the process. But the leopard still defends himself. He starts to throw several scratches and they are dodged by our protagonist. He takes the third harpoon and throws it. This one hits him in the leg, so he can't be using his ability and cuts. Eartha tells him that he is very good at throwing harpoons. The Prota replies that he is very good like Ishmael, making reference to Moby Dick. At that moment the Empress is shown attacking the creature with a ray. Yuilhan greets her and tells her that he has stopped the leopard, but he still needs to finish it. The Empress informs him that she can throw it for a while to immobilize it, and then in 2 minutes she will be able to throw something stronger. Eartha tells Yuilhan that his mana has not yet run out. They realize that the lightning that is thrown does not have a complete effect, and the harpoons that he has will be taken out if he keeps moving abruptly, so they look for a way to stop him a little more. Yuilhan gets into the car where our girl and her partner are and gives him a gun and starts to shoot the leopard. He has a little result but not enough. Despite all that, with the rifle his level and weapon has improved to maximum level. There are seconds left to launch the attack of Strong Ray, in that Yuilhan takes a belly and the triple ray. It hits him, but the leopard uses stealth as Yuilhan expected. He takes advantage and hits him in the eye with the harpoon to stop him. When he falls, he ties him up with the rope and tells Kang Murray to form a party so that they both get the experience. Yuilhan ends up sticking the last harpoon in his head. They get to 938,097 in experience. His level has reached 36. His strength, agility, stamina, and magic have had an increase of 10. He hits him, but the leopard uses stealth as Yuilhan expected. They get a lot of experience. Has risen from level 28 to 36. A creature of 3rd class is somewhat strong to 2nd class. Yuilhan approaches and I open his head. Is found a magic stone as had the mother. Surprising, because that means his mana and must be drained at the time that this dies. Not always all monsters have a reward. It is said that the magic stones have a 17% chance of being obtained. The lower the class, the higher the probability. The higher the class, the less likely to get them. He goes to Kang Murray to share between them the power of the stone because it was a teamwork, and she thanks him, but he better keep the stone and share half of the corpse with her. He accepts. Yuilhan begins to cut the corpse while Kang Murray talks on the phone. At the end of the cut, several trucks arrive to transport them. Murray tells him before leaving to give her his phone number. He is hesitant but ends up accepting because he has a little confidence that he will not give it to someone else. At home, Yuilhan reviews the requirements needed to improve the ability to rest. He lacks troll blood, but it has not been heard. Nothing so far on Earth. But his mana has become a bit denser, so he expects them to appear soon. He also needs hearts of sleeping 2nd class beasts, so he needs to kill them with a single accurate hit. When he sees all the materials, he checks what he can work on. He uses the tendons, and with that he creates a kind of rubber. Eartha asks him what it will help him for. He explains that with the extremely hard tendon he can create bullets. It is not only resistant to fire because it is made in the eternal flame. It is also resistant to water and electricity. But that he creates a pillar bunker with his will be difficult to handle because it will be something similar to a crossbow with the bullets. Its attack power will be better and its penetration will be even stronger. After a while in construction he has finished preparing the bunker. It is divided in 3 phases of charge. But its weight is too much and it has only lasted 2 seconds to load it, and with all that it has called its mother. If it continues like this it will call its ancestors. After that, without using mana, the bunker has alpha power. Yuilhan decides to create more weapons, but this time for smaller monsters, so it lasts all night long, creating new destruction traps that attract mana, and with that he will be able to attract more monsters. But if he continues like this, the flow will continue to increase, so he will attract new monsters. On the one hand it will be positive, but on the other hand there will come a time when he will have a boss monster that will want to destroy the destruction trap. After continuing building, Eartha tells him that he will give him rewards in advance for having completed the quest of the destruction traps. Yuilhan tells him that he will not accept a payment in kind. But Eartha tells him that it is not like that. When he hears the story he will like it. It is about information of a dungeon where he can obtain a new material, a metal that has recently appeared in the earth. When he hears that he gets excited. Later the streets are lonely, very similar to when the fall came, but with a different touch. It is no longer as if people do not know when to return to Earth. Only a few decide to stay to fight, so he is no longer alone. He continues on his way and reaches the forest. He is glad that the entrance is still in Korea and not in another country, even though he would have to build an aviary if it were the case. When they reach their destination and tries to enter, it is denied to people who are below level 50. Eartha tells him not to worry, that with her the entrance will be easy to access. She is right, the entrance has already been raised. Yuilhan enters the cave and finds several crystals and other materials. He gets excited, but before Eartha makes him a mini test to see if he knows how this works. His question is how the monsters are created. Yuilhan answers when the mana is formed in the atmosphere reaches a certain concentration, but that is the basic condition. She explains that the monsters are created when they have a suitable environment so that they can live. In all that, Yuilhan asks him why he asked about the monsters. Eartha tells him that in that dungeon there are several and he will have to defeat it to obtain their hearts and the new material that the earth has. Yuilhan expected to mine the basin, not to kill the monster, and that if heart would be the new metal. With all that, he did not expect to hunt. He had packed everything and his second reward in his bag that has no limitless capacity in keeping things. Well, with all that, he prepares in hunting the same monsters that are hidden in the walls. In that situation he will use a hammer. Iron axes has an attack in 1.250 on the hammer and axe 1270. It has no mana crafting and with all, and that is alpha option, so his strength is very good for that occasion. Yuilhan starts with hunting a critical hit, killing the first beast, getting experience and metal heart level 51. After a while Yuilhan reaches level 38, raising strength, agility, health and magic in the process. Despite being a dungeon, monsters defeated with a blow have not been anything fun. It lasts a while walking until he finds one bigger than the other defeated beasts. His level 74 is above 20 levels. In that, Yuilhan decides to use his magnificent bunker in third phase, prepares and defeats it, gets an experience of 548.701 and winning the metal heart level 74. This is much harder and bigger. Eartha explains that there is another bigger and it is the metal heart king, but it is very unlikely that this will appear as it is a class 4 boss. But while giving his explanation appears another bigger, but Yuilhan decides to save the bunker bullets and will use violent hammer of 1,000 bombs at unique range. Its power attack of 1974, increasing its expansive force and bombs with 30%. Excited attack and defeat him, so both lasted several days in the dungeon. When they come out of the dungeon they find Sign and the others have completed the task in placing every destruction trap on Earth. In the next few days they began to be trapped in the dungeon and disappear. In the areas where humans live, downtown and roads gradually began to have stability. Then the other Asian countries like Japan and China also became stable again. In those days Yuilhan dedicated himself to build armor with the new material and armor. It has a legendary grade and attack power of 48. It can increase attack if it receives a surprise attack. He is already very tired, so he decides to go to sleep and continue when he gets up. The next day Yuilhan leaves his room to find his mom and dad at the living room table. His mom calls him to go to eat and he excitedly does. In a while in family, dad has to go to work, but before Yuilhan gives him a protective shirt for any case, his father takes it gladly, also gives one to his mom and he has one just the same. After a while he decides to go to his workshop to continue what he has pending. When he arrives he gets the surprise that his workshop is organized, clean and like new. Eartha tells him that it is a small reward for the performance he has given in all his skills. The excited Yuilhan thanks her for what he has done. Eartha gives him a book where it is written in how to raise skills and several things of the class 4 beast. But as that still doesn't matter, there is the extreme ability of poison resistance. She tells him that she will tell him where the troll dungeons are located so he can complete the task. She says that he is in the United States. When they arrive at the airport, Yuilhan has no passport or visa to travel, but does not give much importance because with the skills he has the cameras cannot capture it. First make a stop in Los Angeles to continue in Arizona. When they reach the first route, people are running and fleeing from various monsters. A dungeon has overflowed. That means that one of the traps is not giving enough. This creates mutants much stronger than normal. This should happen when the Earth is evolving and new challenges are created, but this is not the case when a dungeon overflows. This can cause the others to do so too. Yuilhan will now have to work harder. He starts attacking and manages to kill one of them. People notice him. Our carrier tries to be unnoticed, but it won't be the case. Another beast appears throwing a fireball and runs away so it doesn't reach him, but it stops hitting him and doesn't pass him when he goes to follow. The people who were running start to fight all those who have combat ability that takes him by surprise. Eartha explains to him that they can't because of his stealth ability. Yuilhan starts to kill one by one. After a while, he manages to reach level 44 with an increase of 2 in strength, 1 in dexterity, 1 in construction and magic. There are still more to come and the boss doesn't show up. The other lizards go to attack to save the boss, but he uses a sword to kill those who are approaching. He has risen to the maximum level in swordsmanship. The boss ends up saying strong human, exploding, creating a crack, but he dodges it and ends up killing him, giving him a blow to the head with the sword. After finishing, all the people around him congratulate him. But he continues walking and going to the forest to continue annihilating several of the lizards. He finishes, and the bag where he keeps the things is weighing, so he tells Eartha to set his weight. She does it. Then the other 2 angels appear. One of them tells him that he was in the scene he was today and congratulates him. He also tells him that later he will meet Nauna again. She is a priestess blessed by beauty and others of her abilities. It would be excellent that they will help each other. Then Eartha asks him what he will do about it, and he refuses to approach her. When they are on the plane to return, he meets the couple he did not want to take, and it seems that they will meet very often. Several days later, they are all eating in the forest. Scorpion meet Yuilhan tells him to leave when they finish, but neither of them pays attention to him. To know how they got to that situation, let's go back a little. Yuilhan finds himself at the entrance of the Troll's dungeon, but what makes it different is that there are 2 traps nearby, and these have worked. Creating the dungeon has become much bigger, and there is no longer a boss but 2. There are not only trolls, but there are also other creatures. When he enters, he finds trolls, but he falls asleep in 3 seconds when he hits his head with the trunk of a tree. Yuilhan realizes because their blood is important, all trolls have the ability to rest. He takes the opportunity to attack, killing him with 1 blow. On the other hand, the couple also enters the dungeon to look for a scorpion and extract the poison. 5 days have passed since Yuilhan is in the dungeon, has eaten troll's meat, so his resistance to poison and cooking ability and creature already improved. When he attacks the last trolls for the 500 liters, is finally possible to go up to the second class change, and that appears several options that are 1. Expert Bloodlangero, 2. Expert in Battle, 3. Novice Ripper, and 4. Berserker. Eartha enters excited to give him an explanation on each of them. The first one is like the next step to his current class. He improves his features a lot. The second one, the Battle Warrior, fights with all weapons and uses his body also as a weapon. The Berserker doesn't leave the battlefield until his opponent dies, or he does. Lastly, Rookie Ripper. Yuilhan waits for the explanation by Eartha, but she doesn't know either, so it must be a unique class. He decides to go for that tank. He likes the unknown. When he selects it, he is given the information that he will be able to handle the death being alive. But before, he has to demonstrate that he will be able to handle it. He will have to kill monsters of 2nd class by surprise, 100 of them, and to kill one of 3rd class. In that, when he is going to go to hunt a scorpion of the desert, appears what is mice that dungeon, but what he has in his clamp is the priestess asking for help. Yuilhan did not want to get involved with the couple, but there is no other way to get through, so he uses a giant skewer made by the metal heart and ends up winning the battle. He pays no attention to the couple and thinks of cutting the scorpion, roasting it, since its meat tastes like lobster, or so he thinks. In that, the priestess realizes that it is he who was in the angels, and so we come to the above 3 eating the meat of the scorpion. The boys decide to go and look for the real boss scorpion, and that when they go halfway, they find him ready to attack, and Yuilhan observes everything from where he was. They start attacking the scorpion, but a giant troll appears and ends up helping them with him. He tells him that they can go on and kill the scorpion. The priestess tells him to help them, and he will give her everything except the poison, and she accepts the deal. The boys decide not to incite more at that moment and leave. They say goodbye, and Yuilhan takes advantage of this to evolve his ability to rest. Our Prota also obtains transcendental regeneration. This means that when he receives a strong impact, the damage caused to the body or his mind will recover quickly. Level 1 stability allows you to recover instantly even if you blow off a finger. Once activated, cannot be activated again until you have recovered enough energy from rest. After that, having obtained this ability, he continues with the mission to kill the 2nd class beasts to have the transfer of Novice Reaper. He realizes that the trolls are walking a little differently. They are not resting alone, they are lying on the trees. During the next 2 days, our protagonist diligently wandered through the dungeon hunting 97 trolls. Every 10 minutes he found one, but now it is very rare to find them, and they were still acting strangely. Yuilhan is roasting a meat. He decides to go back since he can't find any more. There must be another monster bigger than the captain trolls. When they are looking for the exit, they can't find it. Eartha tells him that it could be an abandoned world. When the mutants or beasts begin to evolve and there is no enemy that can attack them and bring a balance between them, they are eating and evolving, then their power is generated, being stronger, God being unable to continue keeping them together. The other worlds decides to abandon them and lock them up. When they are trying to find a solution, appears a new unregistered monster. This apparently is a mutant that appeared after evolving, eating each other. The creature starts to attack. The Proto manages to dodge even though he has the equipment and resists the previous surprise attack. This one is still very strong. There is a difference of almost 100. The crossbow has been destroyed before, so there remains the spear and some other weapons. The creature, the only thing that repeats is registration. Eartha decides to go to look for the couple because if it turns out to be true, an abandoned world, that means that they have not been able to leave yet. Yuilhan is hit by a thorn and the wound on his arm could be caused by a curse. Eartha tells the other angel to pay his debt now, and that when Yuilhan falls he thinks he doesn't want to die, but his fingers don't respond when the creature is about to attack. The others arrive to save him. The priestess performs a magic to regenerate him and it is completed successfully, but still it is not enough, and he asks the other warrior to distract the monster as much as he can. One of the angels tells Eartha what his human is doing. He tells her that now he is hunting trolls. He needs only 3 to complete the second class, and thus his recovery will be completely successful. And the 30 seconds that Kang Hajin told him will be more than enough. That's how Yuilhan completes the task and can now change to second class. He is now a novice reaper. His stealth power has increased to 10% and critical hits 30%. In the battlefield, the priestess helps as much as she can from Kang Hajin, but her armor does not give more when they think they are going to die. Yuilhan arrives to form a group at that moment. He thanks Kang Hajin for enduring and now will attack his opponent. Yuilhan uses his ability to increase his strength and critical hit and sneaks out the back to take him by surprise, killing him, but he realizes it is a woman. The latter tells him thank you. He has 131,969,409 and experience rose to level 55. His strength grew to 4, stamina, agility, magic power by 2. Ledakara level 157, collector of death, absorbed and stored the vital out of her. Yuilhan prepares to cut him, but when he is close the body turns into ashes and disappears. Estha observes everything and it gives him intrigue in what has happened. The world suddenly abandoned that creature without record. The other monsters controlled by another level. In spite of all the difficulties presented, Yuilhan has come out victorious in House 1. It is not known what will happen in the Earth later, but something is sure, that it will be prepared. The boys prepare to leave now that the dungeon exit is back. The ability of the angels has been recovered again and no one died in this battle. Yuilhan, although he didn't get something in the body, he left the weapons and a magic stone that will serve him all. Happy, they decide to go.